So, obviously, this is not a normal mystery magic video. Um, if you have come to see me make a fool out of myself, this is not the video. If you've come to see me make jokes, not the video. My grandma had passed away. My grandma did pass away from COVID-19. So, you guys might have realized the last video I uploaded was going to be a new series that me and Noah were going to do. The coronavirus has been around for a couple weeks now here in Michigan, and it's been hitting us really hard. So we wanted to make a fun video series to kind of, take people's minds off of everything that was going on. And, well, obviously, we're no longer doing that. Noah has actually gone up north, and I've stayed back home to work on mystery magic, figure out what we're doing. I'm doing okay. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it is kind of hard. I did cry a little bit, but I'm doing okay. So, what exactly happened? It's kind of a weird story. The last 4 years for my grandma, really the last 3 years, have been really hard. And I don't really talk about my family that much on this channel, but my grandma's a really special and important person to me. I want to kind of share with you guys some really cool memories of my grandma. And just kind of want to make a video for me to look back on. So let me just first off say that my grandma did pass away from COVID-19. This is 100% what happened. And I'll kind of explain the weeks leading up to last Friday. So about 3 weeks ago, the virus was starting to spread rapidly throughout the state. All the hospitals, if you were not sick, you were not allowed to go in. People, medical supplies, all the stuff that's going on right now in the news, that's actually happening in my home state. And at that time, things were really kind of scary. My grandma was living in her small apartment with my aunt, and my aunt found my grandma kind of slunched over in her chair. And she had had a stroke, the second stroke that she had. And my aunt called 911. They brought her to the hospital, and because of the virus and because all this stuff was going on, no one could see her, no one could meet her, and we really didn't have a lot of information on what's going on. 4 days later, she gets discharged from the hospital, and we find out that she did have another stroke. It was a small one, but it definitely did some damage. She was discharged to a nursing home, and that's where things kind of got worse. I want to say last Monday, Grandma was brought from the nursing home back to the hospital, and she was showing signs of having pneumonia in her left lung. The doctors tested Grandma, and they found out that she tested positive for COVID-19. And she was not doing very well at all. Her breathing was really shallow. And the doctors basically said, I think that this is going to get the best of her. And expect in the next 48 hours for things to worsen and the possibility of her passing away soon. Which is a weird thing to hear, especially when you hear that she just had a stroke, she was sent to a nursing home. So did she get the virus at the nursing home, or did she get it somewhere else, or what exactly happened? And what we eventually figured out was, from the time that she had contracted pneumonia, was at the hospital. So she got the virus at the hospital. Now, I have no idea what's going on over at the nursing home because, again, we weren't even allowed to see her there either. No one was allowed to go into the nursing home. No one is right now because of this virus and because of the wild spreading of it. Yeah, it was kind of weird. April 10th, 2020, 3:30 p.m. Grandma passed away. And it was pretty surreal. Things got worse really quickly throughout the week. The 48 hours did go by, and her condition didn't change for the worse or for the better. She pretty much stayed the same. They had her on 100% oxygen, and then as Wednesday came around, she got worse. Then Thursday came around and they took her off of oxygen and put her on pain medication and stuff to make her feel numb so she wouldn't feel any pain. And then on Friday, around 3:30, we believe 3:30 exactly, Grandma passed and moved on to heaven. Now, that's what happened. That is exactly what happened. It wasn't the stroke that got her. The stroke brought her to the hospital where she contracted the virus. The virus is what actually, she did die in peace, which is such a blessing on my heart. The last couple of hours of my life have been, I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to put it. It's not been sad. Like, I'm not upset. Like, I have cried about it, but I'm not, like, upset about it. Like, I'm not mad at anyone or anything. I'm not mad at the doctors at the hospital. I'm not mad at anyone for lack of anything. Look, I see people on the news right now saying, oh, these people or this and that, and they're not, it's just, who cares? Looking back at my grandma's life, two things really stuck out to me. And those were the things that she had said to me. The first one was, Colin, I believe that if there's ever anyone that can get a prayer to heaven, it would be you. All of this stuff kind of going on, I just want to give you guys a really cool story about my grandma. And maybe it will help you guys out as well. I don't know, but it definitely changed my life. Back in 2016, my grandma had her first stroke. And that was caused due to stress and living conditions and just a lot of other stuff that I don't want to get into. But she had a stroke, and she was living in Kentucky. And I'm from Michigan, and when we found out about this, I was with my dad, and me and my dad, we both got in the car and drove all the way down to go see her. And the thing is, we brought her back. We brought her back up to Michigan. And I had to leave to go on a trip. Obviously, being a professional magician, I had to go and travel somewhere. It might have been like a camp program or something. On our way back from this trip, it was me and my mom. And as we're driving on I-75, we get a phone call from my dad. And Grandma's back in the hospital. To make a really long story short, there was a problem with her medication, and she was just having a small reaction to it. And it was really nothing at the end of it. But we dropped everything that we were doing. Instead of going back home, we drove to my dad's house, and we waited for my grandma to be discharged. And funny enough, by the time that we got there, she was being discharged, and we just had to wait like another maybe like 10 or 15 minutes for her to get over there. So me and Mom, we walk into the house. We're looking around. There's a couple family members from my dad's side of the family and my side of the family, and we're all just sitting there talking, and people are smoking, and it was just one of those weird moments. And I just remember I just wanted some normalcy in my life for just a second. And I saw that my dad's trash can in his kitchen was full. So I tied up the bag and went out to the backyard, and it was around like 8 o'clock at night. So it was getting kind of dark outside. And I just remember like shouting out to God saying, "Hey, what's next? Like, come on, like, what's next?" And when I said that, I didn't say that out of anger. I wasn't mad at God. I'm like, oh, like, why can't you just do things right? Never. Nothing like that. No, nothing like that. But it was more like, hey, I don't know what's next. And I really think that you do. What I meant when I said, hey, what's next? I was honestly asking him out of love and out of compassion, hey, God, what's next? I didn't expect my grandma to have a stroke. I didn't expect her to be back in the hospital. What's next for my life? Grandma ends up coming back home from the hospital, and we decide to hang out for a little bit, have a kind of a party. We're cooking food, we're eating, and we're having dinner, and we're just hanging out at my dad's house. Grandma is sitting in the rocking chair, rocking back and forth, and we're just sitting around. Everyone's laughing and talking, and if you're ever around my family, we are not quiet people. I mean, we are loud people. Part of my family is Italian. I'm also German and Swedish. I'm also a little bit of Polish as well. So we got quite a large group of people and a lot of loud people. But they're fun to be around with and they're fun to hang out with. As we're going back and forth, and as we're sitting there talking and going back and forth, Grandma spoke up and said something. And then the room went quiet. And not like quiet, but I'm talking like everyone shut up for a second. Like everyone in the room stopped talking completely. And then Grandma stared at me, and she opened her mouth, and she said something that really, really scared me. She said, "Colin, I believe that you're going to become a great pastor." Say, what now? I kind of looked at Grandma kind of weird, like, what do you mean I'm going to be a pastor? And Grandma literally looked at me and said, "You're going to be a pastor." And I said, I don't know, Grandma. I don't know. Why do you think that? And she just replied, "I just have a feeling." Whenever I hear people say that, especially now, that scares me. Even though I didn't believe her, everywhere I went, Grandma's words, after she told me, haunted me. It was like being smacked in the face every single day, where God was just like, "Hey, you're going to become a pastor." And I'm just like, "No, I'm not. No way. You don't want me as a pastor. No way you want me as a pastor. No, you don't want me. Why do you want me? Why? Why do you want me? Of 8 billion people on this planet, and you pick me to become a pastor? Why? I don't believe that." And as I kept saying that, more things kept coming up. I would go to a small group, and my youth pastor would go, "Colin, when are you going to start preaching?" And he never even told me anything. I never told him about what my grandma said. He just started sitting there saying, "Are you going to preach? There's a pulpit. Go stand there and go talk to people." Like, wait, like, who does that? Like, I don't understand how this is happening. Then my friend started sitting there saying, "Colin, you would make a great pastor. You would make a great pastor." And I was hanging out at camp, and people would just sit there and say, "I see you becoming a pastor." It's like, what do you see that I don't see? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And then one fateful night, everything really clicked together. And I realized that God was calling me to become a pastor. He was calling me to become a ministry person or someone in the ministry to work and help people and to encourage people. And for the last 3 years, that's what I've done. Now, last year, I got a chance to preach for the first time ever in front of a church. And I was really excited. It was super fun. I enjoyed myself. But my grandma never got a chance to see me preach in public, or live, I would even say. She never got the chance. And I really take her words to heart, that she believed in me enough to speak a word over me and say, hey, you're going to become a pastor. And I want to make sure that my grandma's wish is proudly fulfilled. When I look back at her life, the past few days of me just working back and forth, I just sit and wonder. I never imagined my life to be this way. I never imagined God to call me this way. I never did. But he did. And the first messenger that he chose to give me that message was my grandma. I want to do her proud. I'm not upset that she passed away. I'm not crying about it. But I want to do her proud. Hopefully, this will kind of encourage you guys in some way. I don't know how God works, but maybe one of you guys will get something like this. Maybe God is using this to help someone deal with grief. I did post it on Instagram, I did post it on Facebook, and my family and friends were like, Colin, we're so sorry to hear about your loss. We know this is going to be really hard for you. And I'm just sitting there laughing, going, it's not hard. My grandma believed in Jesus Christ. That believing in him means that we inherit the everlasting life that is written in the Bible. Eternal life, living forever in heaven with Christ, where there is no more sin, there is no more pain, there is no more suffering. Some people say, oh, that's a really nice thought, but the last 3 years of my grandma's life, she didn't walk. If heaven is real, she's walking right now. If heaven is real, she doesn't have any more back pain. Grandma started to have really bad memory loss. I don't think she's forgetting anything now. She was sick. She would have a really bad cough. She had a really, really crooked spine. She had blisters on her legs from the wheelchair. I don't think she has any of those to worry about anymore. And if it doesn't exist, if heaven doesn't exist, then what's the point? But if heaven does exist, and if hell does exist, metaphorically, where would you want to go? If it was real, I want to go to heaven. And the only way to do that is through Jesus Christ. Look, I'm not trying to preach to you guys, but I know that God used my grandma to deliver me that message. I know that for some weird coincidence, I didn't tell a single person about it, but yet person after person after person have told me, you would be a great pastor. I can't explain it. Well, I can, but a lot of people choose not to believe it. I hope that this story brings you guys hope. I hope that if you are grieving over the loss of someone else, that you will understand that if I'm going to be okay, I guarantee you'll be okay. And I might not know what you're going through. It might be a little different. But I don't worry about death. Because death just means that someone has moved to a better place. To my grandma, you will be missed, but I love you, and I'm going to keep your word that you told me to do. I'm praying for you guys, subscribers, all of you guys that are watching this. I'm praying for you. And I want to encourage you guys to know more about Christ. And I want to encourage you guys to follow your dreams, follow your passions. And yeah. God bless, guys. And I'll see you guys in the next video.